Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make fried chicken sliders, some homemade buttermilk ranch, and a salad, and cut up some fruit for dinner. So let's start prepping our chicken for our sliders. Let me clear off. So I've got 4 boneless, skinless chicken breasts over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first cut them all in half, like the thickness way, so that they're not massively thick, because a chicken slider, if the chicken is too thick, then you won't be able to cook it through nicely. So we've got here, and so we'll have 4 sliders there, cut through here through the fat, and I try to make them as even as possible when I'm cutting through, so that we'll have fairly equal chicken slices for our sliders. But again, you can only do so much sometimes. Here, and let's get, there we go. And then we've got, and if you find any little white pieces on your meat, that's fat, and I would just cut it off because it won't cook up nicely. Sometimes the boneless, skinless still has some stuff on it. Okay, flatten it out, and let's make sure we get the thickest part too. Cut as evenly as possible. There. And today was such a lovely day here, just outside of Nashville. It was in the 70s, and I was like, you know what? I'm ready for like summer food. So I was like, oh, I got chicken, so let's make sliders today. And I had a couple packs of brioche rolls that I needed to use up. I always say, people always are like, what are you going to have for dinner? What are you going to have for dinner? And I'm like, I don't know until it gets closer to dinner time, because I have all my proteins. It's just figuring out what to do with them. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to throw these little chicken scraps away, and we're going to use our mallet, and we're going to just pound out our chicken pieces. This is going to help tenderize them, and then also make sure they're not super thick, because again, we're going to be frying this in just a little bit of oil, and we don't want a super thick piece of chicken. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a burnt outside and a raw inside. So it's good to just try to thin them out as much as possible. You don't want it paper thin, because this is a chicken sandwich, so you want a little bit of substance there. But I'm just hammering it out just a little bit. This will be a nice big slider. And then some of the chicken pieces you don't need to hammer quite as much, because they're already pretty thin. This will also make our chicken a little bit more tender as well. So we're just going to go through and hammer these up. And then what we're going to do is we are going to make our flour dredge. We'll beat up some eggs, and then we'll make our final coating. That one's thin. There we go. And these, if you are also good to just kind of eat as a chicken tender too, if you wanted. But they're delicious. Okay. And if you don't have like a meat tenderizer at home, you could use like really anything that's heavy. You can use it to like mash down your meat. I used to use a garlic press for the longest time. I just like wrapped it in cling wrap, and then I used it to like tenderize my meat, and it worked just fine. Okay, we've got all of our meat tenderized down. Okay. This is my dirty hand. This is my chicken hand. So I always try to keep one hand clean so I can do stuff with it. We're going to add in, this is going to be for our flour dredge. We're going to add in about 2 cups of flour. I'm going to add a little bit more because those weren't quite full cups. And this is where we want to season it. We want to season it really well right now, because this is where all the flavor is going to come from. So we're going to use some Lowry seasoned salt. And we're going to give a good amount, because this is where you're going to get all the saltiness of your chicken to it. So we're going to put about a tablespoon in. And then we are going to use some paprika. So good old paprika. This is going to give it a lovely color and just has a nice taste. And you're going to use probably around a tablespoon as well. It's going to give it a nice color to our dredge as well. And then we're going to use some Mrs. Dash's Table Blend. There we go. I just had to buy a new one. There we go. And we're going to put in about 2 tablespoons of this. This has also, I love it. It's a salt-free blend, but it has a bunch of different herbs in it, like black pepper, celery, parsley, a whole bunch of different ones. But it just adds a nice flavor to it. And then we're going to add a little bit of black pepper as well, about a teaspoon. So I don't put quite as much because I don't like that much of a kick, but it's nice to have a nice little peppery taste to it. And then I'm going to take my fork here and we're going to mix all of this up. And this is what we're going to use to season our chicken. And then what we're going to do is we're going to dip all of our pieces in the flour. And then I'll beat up some eggs in my other bowl. And then we'll do into the egg. And then I'm going to add some breadcrumbs to this to give it a little bit more crunch. So this is just going to be our seasoned flour base. I'm just making sure I've got all of my herbs mixed around as best as I can. Okay. So we're just going to take these and do the flour dredge. Now this is important because if you try to dip your chicken straight into the egg, what happens a lot of times is your egg mixture will just slide right off of your chicken because it has a smooth skin. And so this flour really helps it stick to your chicken, which then will help your breading stick because that's what you want. You want a nice breading on your chicken. So, and this is one of the best ways that I have found to do it. And I've done like a couple other like fried chickens, like ways, I've done a beer batter before and whatnot, but this is my favorite. Okay. And we're just going to coat these all up nicely. And the reason why I really season this flour mix, because this is the first coating on the chicken, and it's also going to be the one that sticks the most to it. So you really want it to be flavored really lovely. That way you've got a nice flavor in your chicken. Coat this up. Just a few more pieces to coat. I know here we are feeding an army like usual every day, so we make quite a lot of food. We're feeding 9 tonight, so we have quite a lot. And the benefit for you guys is you get to see every step 9 times. But here we go. We've got all of our chicken coated in their flour mixture. Now, before we beat up our eggs, I'm going to add in our breadcrumbs, and I use panko seasoned breadcrumbs. The panko, because if you don't know what panko is, it's a really big, crunchy, thick breadcrumb versus the other style, which is thin. So panko, and I'm going to use about 2 cups, and you want seasoned just to give you a bit more flavor into your chicken. There we go. And I'll put this over here since we're done. And I'm going to use my fork and my hands to just kind of mix this up. I find the panko works the best over, the regular one. And it gives you that nice crunch on your chicken. There we go. So that will be for our second coat. And now I'm going to take up 4 eggs. We're going to put them in here and we're going to just beat them until we have a nice egg batter, essentially, that we will be putting our chicken cutlets in.
The flour they're asking, was it all-purpose flour?
Yes, all-purpose flour. No need to waste like glue or bread flour on it. And I know you can technically use self-rising flour as well. It'll give you more of a kick in your like a pop on your thing. But I like just plain all-purpose flour. It just works the best. I know that like the fast rising flour has a little bit of baking soda on it, which gives you kind of a nice crispy crust as well. But I always use all purpose. And and I don't think it would work out as well with bread flour. Bread flour has more gluten in it, so I think it would make more of a chewy versus a nice crunchy chicken. Okay, so we've got our egg batter mixed up. And before we start in doing that, I'm going to put in some olive oil in here, and we're going to have it start heating up so we can fry it. There we go. And I'm going to start with my oil on like a medium high until it warms up, and then I'm going to turn it down. The trick is you don't want to have your oil so hot that it burns or cooks your chicken outside so fast that it doesn't get in the middle. Now, I don't want enough oil in that it's completely submerged, but I do want it to where each side of it is, covered. And most of this oil, unfortunately, will like get thrown out. I know people can save their oil and reuse it as they want, but I typically just throw mine out when we're done.
You have a question? Do you prefer olive oil over avocado and peanut oil?
Yes, only because I just always buy olive oil. It's help. Peanut oil is really great for frying and stuff like that, but I find it's not as good in like if I make marinades. And I'm a person who just really wants to have one type of oil instead of having like 20 different bottles in my cupboard. So I always just stick with olive oil, and I'll sometimes get the different like the extra virgin or the virgin, which one's better for frying while the other one's better for salad dressing. But I do typically stick with just olive oil. It just simplifies what I have in my kitchen, cupboards. Which, when I have 5 kids, and so when you have a small army you're feeding for, space is always precious. So you don't want to necessarily fill it up with unnecessary things. So I sometimes try to minimize some of the stuff that I have, so that I can have more. So what we're doing is we're just simply dipping each cutlet into the egg batter. And what happens is the egg sticks to the flour coating really nicely. And then we just transfer it over. And then I just kind of pick up some crumbs and I put it on top of it to do it. And I just kind of push it to kind of keep the crisp on it.
You have a question? How do you dispose of your used oil?
So typically what I do is the paper towels that I put the chicken on to rest on, I then soak up my oil into the paper towels that I've used, and then I just throw it away there. So I'll like when I'm done frying these chicken, I'll rest them on paper towels to collect the excess grease on it. And then I use those to like kind of soap up the olive oil at the end, so that I can throw it away. Same thing with bacon grease. I'll do that with bacon, is just sop it up with the paper towels at the end, because what you don't want to do is pour it down your sink. Otherwise, you'll have some clogged pipes in a couple of months. One year, I was really bad about cleaning up my oil, and we had our pipes completely blocked, and it took the plumbers like 4 hours to get through it. And they were like, "This is from grease." And I was like, "Guilty." So now I've been really good about trying to dispose of it like in the trash can, wiping out like out of pots every time, because nobody wants to deal with a plumber. There we go. And then we're doing this. Just a couple more left to coat for our fried chicken sliders. There we go. And I always see if I only use one hand for my dipping, because it gets really coated. And so I always try to keep my other hand clean. There we go. And perfect. I can starting to heal our oil start to sizzle. You want to make sure you don't put your chicken in the oil until it's nice and hot. So typically what I do is a water drop test. So in a little bit, I will drop a bit of water in it. And if it sizzles right away, I know my oil is perfect for cooking. Because if you put it in oil that isn't hot enough, you're going to just get soggy chicken. And then you also don't want your oil to be too hot, because then you'll get burnt chicken that's raw. So it takes a minute to kind of get your feeling of your oil. But once you have it down, frying up chicken or fish or pork tenderloins is really easy. And I think the biggest mistake most people do is that they keep their oil on way too high, and then they burn their chicken. So keep it low, and then it'll be perfect and cook through every single time, which is why it'll be delicious. So again, this is my last cutlet that I'm doing, this is going to be for our fried chicken sliders. And then we're going to be making a homemade ranch using buttermilk and some fresh chives, and then a salad, and we'll cut up some fruit for our dinner tonight. You know, I was like, oh, we need to have something refreshing tonight because it's so lovely outside. There we go. Okay, I've got my chicken all cleaned up. I'm going to go wash my hands because they are coated in all of this breading. And then we'll start our frying up process. Ugh. I will say that's the one thing that's bad about, like, you know, hand breading your stuff is you do get coated. But nice and clean, easy peasy. Okay, let's check our water, see if it's nice and hot yet. So I'm just going to take a drip from my faucet, and you see how it instantly bubbles up? That means it is ready to go. So I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. I'm going to grab my tongs.
Question, what's the breading?
The breading is flour, panko breadcrumbs, seasoned panko, black pepper, paprika, Lowry seasoned salt, and Mrs. Dash's table blend. There we go. And then I just have mine on a medium right now. I'll cook these, and then as the oil and gets hotter and hotter, I'll slowly turn it down. And I have my baking sheet with paper towels lined on it because when I'm done frying them, I want to transfer them onto the paper towel so that they get a nice, like, crisp on it instead of sitting in their own grease. Okay, let's start prepping some of our other stuff. Let's get onto our ranch. So we're going to be using some mayo, chives, a ranch packet, and then I'm going to get some buttermilk out of the fridge. Buttermilk is what makes this ranch dressing absolutely delicious. It gives you that restaurant feel to it. So I love, like, the nice thick ranch dressing that you get from a restaurant. So we are going to add 1 cup of buttermilk. Now you can make your own buttermilk at home if you wanted. You just have to whip up some heavy cream, and then you take out your butter, and what's left over is buttermilk.
I have a question. Do your parents live with you? Because you mentioned them eating with you the other night.
Yes, so my parents live 3 miles away, but I cook all of their meals for them to kind of help them out. They're very busy people, really big into academia, and they, you know, have really busy jobs. So I cook all of their food for them. So they eat with us over at our house, or they pick up food from us all the time. So yes, they don't live with us, but they are really close to us. So we're going to add in about a cup of mayo. I eyeballed it because it's kind of such a pain to put it in a cup and measure it. So a cup of buttermilk and a cup of mayo. I'll use this spoon. I'll put this over here. Keep my area nice and clean. And then I'm going to just use my spoon, and we're going to just kind of mix it together. And it will mix up really well. You could use a fork as well, but that's what's going to be the base of our salad dressing. Okay, and then we're going to add in 1 ranch seasoning packet. I find, like, you can always make your own ranch seasoning, but it just doesn't compare to a packet that you can get from the store. You just got to jazz it up a little bit. So we got 1 packet of ranch, and then we're going to add in some fresh chives. So chives, if you're not familiar with them, they're in the onion family, and they have a really mild onion flavor to them, and they're delicious. They'll add a nice little pop of brightness to our fresh ranch. Okay, so we're going to just mince these up nice and small, and then we'll put them in there and give everything a nice stir. And then we'll let it sit, and our ranch dressing will be done. And this is going to go great on both our salad and on our sliders, because what sounds better than fried chicken with buttermilk ranch? It's like one of my favorite combos. Absolutely. Like, ranch is just one of those things, and not the, like, Hidden Valley ranch. It's got to be the nice homemade or restaurant ranch, you get. Oh, just good ranch. Can't beat that. Okay, we're gonna go over and we're really gonna mince these up nicely because think about when you're eating your salad or dipping your chicken, you don't want a huge piece of chive in there, but enough to give it a nice bright pop. Okay. And this is about, I want to say, maybe a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of fresh chives. And a lot of times these grow like in people's backyards or whatnot. They're just these like tall, thick grasses that will grow, and they're really chives. We have them all over our yard too. My middle daughter, she used to always like pick them and eat them in the summer, and I'm just like, I don't know if I would eat a chive straight up. I mean, in a ranch dressing, delicious, but maybe not straight up.
Do you have questions? Do your kids ever help in the kitchen?
They do. They actually really love to help in the kitchen, especially like on weekends. They'll kind of help me with my like cooking brunch or whatnot. There we go. A nice golden color on it. And I'm like a person who, if I'm trying to get dinner out quickly, I like to do it by myself. But if it's more of a relaxed, then I'll have my kids in it. Like, actually, I think there's several videos of ours posted where my 3-year-old is in here helping me cook. He really we call him Chef Teddy because he loves to help me cook in the kitchen. But I do try to. My oldest daughter does not. She's the one where I'm like, you're going to grow up and you're going to have home cooked meals, but you won't know how to cook a single one. And I keep saying, I'm like, we're going to work on it this summer. You're going to have to cook all of these staples. And my son, he's actually like getting my 13-year-old. We're working on some like basic staples, but they love really just cracking the eggs and whipping it and then being my official taste testers.
But they'll always have these videos.
I know, that's why it's a great thing about having videos uploaded. Like my kids in a couple of years when they're out on their own, they can look back and be like, oh, I want to cook this dish that mom makes, and they'll always have it. So it's always something kind of special there. It's like a little, memory keepsake.
You have a question? What type of chicken is that?
This is just boneless, skinless chicken breasts. So I don't want a bone in it because that's a whole nother level of frying chicken that we can get to. So this is just boneless, skinless, but easy, simple. You could do chicken thighs. Chicken thighs have a bit more fat in them, so they would be a little bit moister, but it would make a delicious fried chicken slider as well. Just checking.
Could you fry the chicken in vegetable oil?
Yes, you could fry it in really any oil that you want. I just choose olive oil because it's my personal preference, but you could fry it in any oil that you want.
Motor oil?
Well, okay. And there's my husband's sense of humor. Not motor oil. Any edible oil that is meant for frying. Some oils can't take like high temperatures. They have a low smoking point. So, of course, you wouldn't want to use those. But my goal is not to have my oil above like, 350, 400 in the pan, so that it gets a nice like golden crisp. So we're chopping up 1 head of romaine lettuce and mixing there. I like to buy my lettuce fresh instead of in a salad bag because it lasts so much longer in a salad bag or in a fresh that it does in a salad bag. Like, as soon as you open up your salad bag, within like 2 days, your lettuce is already brown. But if it hasn't been cut or shredded, it will stay nice and fresh in your fridge for like weeks. And which is nice when, we can go to Costco and get a big pack of them and they'll be good for like 2 weeks. Now, if I get my one in a plastic bag, it's like every time I want to use it, it's already bad. Okay, let's check on this. Beautiful. Nice golden chicken. And I always put it the grease side down that I just took it out to absorb most of that extra oil. Beautiful. And again, you want to do low and slow because you want your chicken to be cooked all the way through. Again, a lot of like issues that people have is the oil is so high that they cook it and they get a golden crust really, really quickly, but then they don't, like, it's raw on the inside. There we go. And then we'll pop in one more. And let's find a smaller one. And you could, like, I could have had 2 tins of like pans out here of frying oil in it and fried both at the same time. But I find it's better to just do one and slow because you do throw away a lot of oil. Okay, so we are gonna get some tomatoes. I've got some cherry tomatoes and we're gonna pop these in there. So let's cut them in half because we want to coat them well with our thing. So we're going to get a handful or 2. Only a couple of my kids like tomatoes. I love tomatoes. So these are going to be mainly for me and my daughter, Evie. She is my crazy wild child and she loves pretty much every vegetable you throw in front of her, while my other kids are a bit more selective. During the summer when I plant my like garden and we have our cherry tomatoes in bloom, she'll go out there and she'll be like, I'll help you harvest them. And I never have any cherry tomatoes when we come back inside because she's eaten them all before they get inside. Because she just pops them right off the thing and eats them. So we're just going to cut these in half. I find like you could keep them in their whole, but when you cut them in half, they really get covered in the ranch dressing, which is delicious. Okay. And just a few more. And a simple salad. We'll throw in some croutons for my kids who want it, but easy, basic. And I'm going to give my cutting board a quick wash because we're going to cut up some fruit. And one time I cut pineapple after I cut onions, and all my kids, they were like, this tastes like onion. So always wash between different cuts of food. But tonight we're going to have salad, and then we're going to have cantaloupe and honeydew. Evie is 9. She'll be 10 this summer. And she's crazy. She's my wild child, the one that is, my mom likes to say is how I was as a kid. And I was like, oh, I put you through that much trouble. Okay.
And then what's the breading for the chicken?
The breading for the chicken is, I'm going to check this right here. It is, so you coat everything in a seasoned flour, which is, 2 cups flour, paprika, Mrs. Dash's blend, table blend. It's like a fine ground blend. Lowry seasoned salt. This is going to give the salty kick, and some black pepper. And then you coat everything. Then you dip it in the egg. Then you're going to add seasoned panko breadcrumbs back to the mix. They all need a few more minute on here. And then you toss them in there. So it's like flour, like seasoned flour, egg, then seasoned flour with the breadcrumbs. Okay. Let's get our melon. I try to serve fresh fruit with every meal that they have at home. And so we go through a lot of fresh fruit, if you can imagine, in this house. Let's say I was like telling somebody the other day that we go through probably 2 to 3 melons a week, 2 pineapples a week, 4 pounds of strawberries a week, pound of 2 pounds of blueberries, a pound of blackberries, a pound of raspberries, and then just like a handful of, apples, oranges, grapefruits. And so I always buy my fruit and then cut it up.
A couple questions. First one was the tomatoes, were they washed? And I can show you it.
Yes, there you can see. Yes.
And the second one is, what temperature do you cut or start cooking the chicken?
So what I do is I heat up my oil, and then when it sizzles in the like when I drop water droplets in it and the water sizzles right away, that's when I know my oil is hot enough. So I don't use a thermometer. I just know from like the sizzle test. So if your water's not hot and you drop water into it, it won't do anything. So that's kind of my way of testing it without getting a thermometer out or anything like that. Now, if you have like one of the frying machines or like a Fry Daddy or whatever they're called, it's around 350 that you fry your chicken at, because you want it to kind of be slow so you get a nice golden crust and you cook it on the inside.
Yeah, what state are you in?
We are in Tennessee. So we live just south of Nashville. Okay, now we're going to cut up our melon. So I always buy my melon whole because they charge you an arm and a leg at the store for melon, or pineapple. I think is the most ridiculous overpriced for them to cut it up for you. And it's really not that hard. So if you cut it like this, then it will bend easy for you. So you can just bring your knife right underneath it. And I just make it a habit to cut up my fruit with our dinner so that we have it. And then when I do, I'll cut up all of it. So then the extras just go in the fridge for like lunches and snacks. But that way, I know they're getting fresh fruit. And it's also a great way for my kids. Like, I don't cook separate meals for my little kids or whatnot. They eat what we eat. But I make sure there's always something on the dinner table that every kid will like. And so if that's the fresh fruit or the bread that we're having or the salad or whatnot, there's at least something that they like and that they can have multiple servings on to fill them up. And that's kind of the way that we get so that we are all eating the same meal and we don't have complaints, all the time. Like, oh, I don't like this meal. I don't like, as long as there's something on there that every kid likes, then they're happy.
A couple questions. How many kids do you have and what's their age range?
Yes. So I have 5 kids. My oldest daughter, she just turned 15. And then I have a 13-year-old son, a 9-year-old daughter, a 3, almost 4-year-old boy, and then a 16, almost 17-month toddler boy as well. So 3 boys and 2 girls. They definitely keep me on my feet. So we're busy, and we're, like, I'll say my son, my 13-year-old son, he is 13, but he is the size of a grown man. He's already 5'11", and he just turned 13. So he's really tall, and he's really hungry all the time. And it always surprises me how much a teenage boy can eat. Okay. These are just about ready. Perfect. Nice golden crusts on them. And that's the trick, is you see how they're perfect every time. And that's because we're going slow. You don't want to, yes, you can get quick results heating them up fast, but with chicken, you want to do it nice and easy. Take it from, it will be worth the wait. Let's pop these ones in here. Perfect. Turn it there, just up a smidge. We're going to finish up, and then we're going to cut up our honeydew melon. I always like to give 2 choices with the melons because some love honeydew, some love cantaloupe, some love watermelon, but they don't all love the same. We did try the other day a sweet hammy melon, and it was delicious. It looks like a cantaloupe, but it has like the texture of an Asian pear, which is a little bit of a crunch. And it was much sweeter than a cantaloupe, and it didn't have any of the musk flavor to it. So it was surprisingly delicious. Okay, we almost got this guy chopped up, and then we'll get our other melon here. And you see, like, I'm putting it in this big container over here. This is what we'll serve out of, and then it will just go in the fridge, and the kids will have easy access to the fruit. And these 2 fruits together cost me $5. And that would have cost at like Publix or Kroger easily like $15, maybe 20, because they charge you so much money for them to cut it for you. So I always say, do it yourself. You'll save money. Okay. I'm going to give.
What do we have with the chicken?
So we're going to have with the chicken, we have our lovely salad that we made, and then we made our homemade buttermilk ranch right here. We use buttermilk, mayo, fresh chive, some ranch seasoning. And so it's going to be kind of like nice fresh sides with our chicken sliders, our fried chicken sliders. So a nice little pop of things. It's the weather here in Tennessee, at least right outside of Nashville, has been lovely. It was, I think, got up to maybe 76 today. So, and 76 after winter feels like 86. It was definitely hot. My children were like, can we do water play? And I was like, no, are you sure? Can we get the sprinkler out? I'm like, we can't get the sprinkler out. It's like 70 degrees. You'll be freezing in like 5 minutes as soon as it gets going. But that's how hot it was. And I was like, I know. I long for the summers too, and the lake and the beach and the pool and just all being outside in the water. We're close. Not there yet. This week it's spring break for my kids. So we have been going through like twice as much food as we normally do on spring break.
You got a question? Do you cook every meal?
Almost every meal. I mean, we go out to eat a couple times a month. Like yesterday, we went out to a baseball game. And so, of course, we ate at the baseball game for dinner. But I cook most of our meals because we have, 5 kids, and that's expensive going out. And B, taking little toddlers out and babies out to restaurants is not exactly fun. It's a lot of work. I think we'll probably go out to eat more when they get older, just because it'll be more enjoyable. But right now, it's kind of a chore when we go out to eat because there's a lot of work to keep them happy so that we're not disturbing everybody else who's out to eat. But we do try to go out a couple of times a month, or we'll pick up some, like fast food. Like my kids absolutely love Chipotle, even though I make a pretty good version of it at home. It's just not the same, apparently. Let's check our chicken right here. Beautiful.
Oh, and you got asked about the breading again. If you want to do a quick rundown and then mention how we post it.
Yes. So this breading is just made from 2 cups flour, about a tablespoon of paprika, a tablespoon of Lowry salt, 2 tablespoons of Mrs. Dash's table blend, and a teaspoon of black pepper. And then you dredge like your chicken in that, and then you put it in like an egg mixture, which is just 4 eggs beaten up. And then you'll add some seasoned panko breadcrumbs to the flour mixture. And then you dip the chicken in the egg and then back into that mixture. And that's what gets our tasty crust for it. But we will upload this video to the link on our page so that you guys can watch it afterwards if you want to get the recipe again. And, it typically takes us a couple hours because, it takes a while for things to upload. But we do like to post everything so you don't lose it once you're on here. And then I do try to get out recipe cards, but it does take me a little bit of time to get them out because we're pretty busy here with the 5 kids and everyone has sports. So we're always running around doing stuff on the weekends.
What's your favorite food compared to your kids?
Well, we actually have a family favorite. Everyone loves my homemade ravioli. That is probably like the consensus, and I love it too. My favorite that I never get, but I just say it's my favorite because I never get it, is Indian food. I do love Indian food, but none of my kids or my husband like it. But I do have my best friend. She loves it. And so when we'll go out and we'll have girls' night out and we get Indian food a lot because she loves it as well. But I would say ravioli is one of my favorites. I'm a pasta girl. I love bread and pastas. So really anything I do that involves pasta is a win for me. It's just so delicious versus luckily my kids are pasta ones. My husband, he's more of like a meat and potatoes type of guy. But I love pasta, especially a creamy pasta, not a marinara. I mean, marinaras are fine, but I love a good creamy pesto. Those are delicious, especially if you make it homemade, or a creamy lemon white wine sauce. Delicious. Okay, these are just about ready to pop out. We just want them to get a little bit. That one's nice. There we go.
Got a question. Is your husband the cameraman?
He is the cameraman, and I hope he enjoys it. Yeah, he tells me he's been learning a lot more about cooking since watching. So, that's a bonus too. He can actually identify things. We have a big difference between the meals that I cook and what we call a Papa Bear meal. Let's just say the children prefer my cooking. When I was in grad school, and I had classes on the weekends for my doctorate. And my husband would, he would feed them for all their meals during the day because I was gone all day on Saturday. And they would come home and they're like, "Oh, thank goodness you're home, Mom. We're so hungry." So I will say, my meals were much better than his. But I'm glad it's one of those things. So I have my doctorate in education and leadership, but now when I was pregnant with my fourth, I decided to stay home with my kids for a while because I'd never done that with my other ones. My other three were with me at my school while I taught because I worked at the university and I taught in a lab school where I worked with children with disabilities as well as college students and teaching them how to work with children with disabilities. And I loved it. But when I was pregnant with my fourth, I decided to take a break. And I have loved being home. I still work. I do educational consulting, but it's different. I get to set my own schedule, and it's really nice. And I've been enjoying my time home. Sometimes crazy, I will admit that, but it is nice. It's a definitely different pace. It's not like the rat race anymore. And I think I'll definitely go back to work one day, when my youngest one probably goes off to kindergarten, but I'm enjoying being home. And also the price of childcare is crazy. It's like an arm and a leg. So, we get to save on that. Like the going rate for childcare here in Nashville, right outside, is almost $2,000 a month for a kid, for full care. So that's like a pretty penny. And I would have two, and then I have my other kids at home. So it would just be, you'd be spending like $5,000 a month for everyone to have like childcare. And that's just insane.
Quick question. Do you only flip the chicken once?
I try to only flip it once. That way it crisps up nicely. Now, if I flipped it and I realize it needs a little bit more, I'll just flip it back over. But if you want the nicer crispy crust, try to just do it one time, because the second time you're more likely to burn parts that are already well cooked. So I always take a little peek by flipping it up, and then and that's why I'll know when it's ready. And it will look a little bit lighter than you think, but when you flip it and it starts to cool, it gives you a little darker golden color. So it always looks like a shade lighter than what you think when you're flipping, but when you actually flip it over, it's much darker. Okay, last bit of honeydew. I'll slice it here, and then since we are done prepping everything else, I will put up a plate with one and show you how we're going to eat it tonight. At least there we go. So let me clear this out of the way. And let me get a plate.
So loaded question. What time do you normally eat dinner?
Everyone thinks we are late. We are night owls. And so we typically eat dinner between 8:30 and 9. I know that is much later than everybody else. Yeah, sometimes we eat at 7, but most of the time my kids have sports activities that don't get done until like 7:30, and then we're not home until 8. So it's like just a rush to try to get them. And I always try to make dinners, be quick. But, luckily, like with my little ones that are still home, they go to bed a little bit later, but they sleep until 9 every day. So that's like a bonus. So their sleep schedule is just slightly adjusted. Okay, so we're gonna let me find a nice one. So you got our chicken on here, and then we're gonna gotta put some pickles on here because pickles are the best. So we've got our pickles, and of course, we're gonna have a lovely dollop of our homemade ranch. Really cut through. So we've got our buttermilk ranch, and then let me get some tongs to serve up our salad. And we've got our salad. Say it's going to be kind of a nice, refreshing lunch or dinner. And then, of course, the buttermilk ranch is where it's all at. And yes, I'm a ranch addict. I love ranch. And of course, we'll have some fresh fruit. So we'll put in our honeydew, and our cantaloupe. And this is what we're having for dinner tonight. Simple, easy, delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking every day. I just like to show you what I'm cooking for my family. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Also, feel free to message us or comment if you like to see any recipes or you have any cooking questions. I'd love to try to help you guys out. Again, thanks so much.